Welcome to the So That's Why podcast, where we unpack the science behind everyday questions. I'm Jen.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Matt.
So here's a fact that will surprise a lot of people. Your brain doesn't feel pain. It's got roughly 86 billion neurons and exactly 0 pain receptors. So if your brain can't feel pain, why do we actually get headaches?
I want to know the guy that counted 86 billion neurons. That's.
He might have counted like a tiny bit and then multiplied it by the area.
Do you think that's what it was?
Like when you get the little square in the field and you count the grass.
Daisies. Didn't you used to have to count daisies in school?
Yeah. Well, whoever it was, hats off to you. And I mean, the whole system, I suppose I just assumed that my brain could feel pain. This is the assumption that I've had my whole life.
Yep, and you're not alone there. So most people assume the brain is what hurts during a headache, but it's actually a pretty sensible reason why that's not the case. And once you kind of see where headache pain actually comes from, a lot of treatment advice starts to make more sense.
So by the end of this episode, you'll know which nerve is doing the shouting during a headache, why migraines come with things like nausea and light sensitivity, even though the pain is in your head, and why overusing painkillers can genuinely and measurably start causing the very headaches you're trying to stop.
That last one, that's going to feel like that's going to make a lot of people think twice about their paracetamol usage, isn't it? Sort of partway through listening to this, I think.
Yeah, probably. Although it's not normally as simple as, just stop everything immediately. But we'll get to that. Because first, it's worth kind of zooming out. Because when it comes to headaches, it's a much bigger issue than most people realise.
They really are. And there was a study by the Global Burden of Disease in 2023. Fun place to work.
Yeah. Where do you work? You're the Global Burden of Disease.
They sound like a great bunch of people.
I just want to meet the guy who named it.
I know.
The Global Burden of Disease. Yeah.
Anyway,
funny.
Back to their useful studies. So they estimated that around 2.9 billion people worldwide experience headaches. So that's more than 1 in 3 of us. And headache disorders are ranked as the 3rd leading cause of disability globally.
That's crazy, isn't it? A 3rd overall. Not a 3rd in some kind of niche category, but a 3rd in the whole picture. That I do find surprising.
Yeah, it is surprising. And I think part of the reason it surprises people is cultural, because we tend to treat headaches as something minor. You push through it, you have a coffee, squint a bit and kind of carry on with your day.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I do that. I'll sit at my desk, realise I haven't had water since breakfast, and then wonder why my head's pounding at 3 o'clock.
I don't know. I think most people do that, right? Just a headache as a phrase does an awful lot of heavy lifting, doesn't it? And covers a sort of this huge range of completely different conditions.
It certainly does. And in fact, there are over 200 classified types of headaches. So what causes one has very little to do with what might cause another, which is also why generic advice kind of falls short normally.
Okay, so let's look at what's actually going on. So we know that the brain itself can't feel pain, but the structures around it absolutely can.
Yeah, so right. Let's start with the blood vessels, the meninges. So these are the membranes surrounding the brain and the muscles in the scalp, the face, the neck. They all contain these pain receptors called nociceptors. And they detect when something's wrong. And what happens is they all feed into one main pathway, which is called the trigeminal nerve. And this is basically the main communication hub for sensation in the head.
And when those structures are irritated, the trigeminal nerve sends that signal up to the brainstem, which then passes it on as pain.
So the brain isn't actually feeling the pain. It's more like it's being told about the pain from somewhere else.
Yeah, and once that signal reaches the brainstem, it doesn't stay isolated. It pulls in other systems too, including those involved in balance, digestion, and light and sound processing.
Yeah, totally. And that's why a really bad headache isn't just about pain, is it? So it can come with nausea, dizziness, and that strong urge to shut out kind of light and sound.
Yeah, and that explains why the instinct, I guess, is just to lie down in a dark room, isn't it, and turn everything off.
Yeah, it does. And chemically, there's a few key players in this. So serotonin is one. So we usually think of it as the mood chemical, but it also affects blood vessels. So when serotonin levels drop, blood vessels can expand and that amplifies pain signals.
It does. And then another key player is calcitonin gene-related peptide, or CGRP.
That's not easy to say.
Let's stick with CGRP. So this CGRP is released during migraine attacks, and it dilates blood vessels, which amplifies that pain signaling. So in fact, it's so central, there's a whole class of modern migraine drugs designed specifically to block this CGRP.
So CGRP is basically then what turns things up, right? And medicine has finally, hopefully, found a way to turn it down.
Well done, Matthew. That is actually a better summary than some textbooks manage.
Thanks, Mum.
And then estrogen is another important consideration. So when estrogen levels drop, so especially before menstruation, it can trigger migraines. And that's one of the major reasons why migraines are about 3 times more common in women than they are in men.
So does that change over someone's life then as hormones shift at different stages?
Yeah, it does. So the migraine patterns often shift during puberty and then again in pregnancy and then again in perimenopause, which are all periods of hormonal change because it's just wild being a woman. But it's one of the most consistent findings in the research.
It is. And if we look at migraine specifically, there's a process called cortical spreading depression, which is a slow wave of altered electrical activity that moves across the brain. And you can actually see this on brain imaging equipment, believe it or not.
And that wave is likely what causes the migraine aura, isn't it? You know, the classic visual distortions, blind spots or tingling some people experience before the pain starts. It then activates the trigeminal system and that then triggers the whole headache phase that we've talked about.
Yeah, so this is not just stress or perception, is it? It's a real, measurable biological event.
Exactly right. And that's important context for anyone who's ever had a migraine, just dismissed by people as, it's just a headache.
But then the psychological side matters too, doesn't it? So anxiety, low mood and chronic stress don't create imaginary pain. They interact with the same neural systems that process pain, which can make real pain more frequent and intense.
So it's not really two separate systems, is it? It's not the emotional and the physical. They're using the same wiring.
Exactly right, Matt. Top of the class.
Again. Well done, me.
And that's why
Doing well today.
That's why most effective approaches try and address both at the same time.
So with all of that in mind then, what actually separates, say, a tension headache from a migraine or something more serious?
So there are 3 main types of headache. So they are tension type, migraine and cluster. And they differ in location, in quality or severity, if you like, duration, and very much in terms of associated symptoms.
So your tension headaches, you mentioned those, they're one of the most common and about 80% of adults experience these at least one a year. And they affect roughly 2 billion people across the world. So they feel like a tight band around the head. They're usually mild to moderate, and typically they don't come with any nausea or light sensitivity.
That's right. And then migraine is very different, isn't it? So it's a neurological condition for a start. So, and it affects around 12% of adults. They say they experience them. And it's usually throbbing, often one-sided. And it's commonly comes with nausea, light and sound sensitivity, and sometimes aura, as you mentioned earlier. If anyone's ever had one, they are horrible. I tend to get a couple a year and you get little flashy lights and it all kind of kicks off. But the thing with migraines, they can last anywhere from kind of 4 hours through to 72 hours, which is just, not very nice.
Yeah.
And the aura often comes with these flashing lights, as I mentioned, or zigzag lines that build up before the main headache and nausea kicks in. So you get the little lights and you know the headache's coming, which is not a pleasant time to be.
No,
Yeah,
not at all.
I feel for anyone that suffers with migraines. I really do. So what about cluster headaches then? Are they rare and extremely severe? I'm kind of curious about these.
Yeah, so about 0.1% of the population experience those, and they're often described as some of the most intense pain in medicine. And they tend to come in cycles, and they're usually focused around one eye, often with like tearing or redness.
And when it comes to headaches, people seem to experience them completely differently. They sort of have different patterns, don't they? Some are tied to hormones, others tied to maybe lifestyle or even posture.
Yeah, and that's what makes it so difficult. Because a major review identified over 400 potential migraine triggers, for example, and they were grouped into 15 different categories. And even then, the same trigger doesn't always cause a headache in the same person. So there's so much to consider, so many variables.
There really is. But the most common ones are like stress, or the letdown after stress headaches, or, headaches after disruptive sleep, or if you've skipped a meal, or you're dehydrated, or those hormonal shifts we talked about, or alcohol related headaches, or caffeine, having both too much caffeine or too little caffeine.
And that always confuses people, doesn't it, that caffeine one? I've heard caffeine can help, headaches, and I've also heard that caffeine can cause headaches within the same week, and both said with extreme confidence.
And just to confuse you all matters further, they're both kind of true. So small amounts of caffeine can help by constricting blood vessels and also boosting the effectiveness of painkillers. But higher or chronic caffeine intake is different. And there was a large data set that found 400 milligram or more of daily caffeine was linked with over a 40% higher prevalence of headache or migraine.
So if you're putting your coffee cup down as we're speaking, withdrawal matters too. So if you're used to caffeine every morning, missing it can trigger a headache on its own. So it's really an inverted relationship. Some helps, too much harms, and sudden changes in either direction can tip things.
Which is it's incredible, isn't it, really? And then, of course, there's something I didn't know about at all, which is medication overuse can cause headaches. So painkillers can actually make headaches more frequent if you take them too often.
I know. What can you do here? The messages are all over the place, aren't they?
Yeah.
But it's so true. And it's one of the most under-recognised drivers of chronic headache. So there's a stat that if you take painkillers on more than 10 to 15 days a month, it can flip the system so the medication itself starts maintaining the headache problem rather than alleviating it.
But the encouraging part is that breaking that cycle often leads to a real improvement, and people do genuinely feel better once they've addressed it.
Okay, guys, so what actually helps most people day to day?
So the strongest evidence is simple but consistent regular sleep with a fixed wake-up time, steady hydration, regular meals, and stress management through things like breathing practices or relaxation techniques.
Relaxation techniques? What are those? Do you mean relaxation techniques, Jen?
I do indeed.
It's good to know.
I don't know where to go with that.
I need some caffeine, I think.
It sounds like a new product, doesn't it? Section teaks.
People be like, how does a relaxation teak help my headache?
I bet you
Technique.
that'll be on a spa menu before the...
Heard it first here.
Yeah, we should trademark it. Quick, buy the domain name. Laura, buy the domain name.
On hydration, you mentioned hydration. So on that specifically, there was a trial that found increasing water intake by about 1.5 litres a day improved headaches in almost half of the participants. So that's actually, if you think about it, that's a massive difference for something so simple as drinking a bit of water.
Yeah.
It really is. I mean, nearly double the improvement just from water, which I think that means most of us are underestimating it, right? And the power of hydration.
Yeah, definitely. Magnesium is another option with decent evidence behind it. So that plays a role in normal brain and nerve function. And studies suggest it can actually help reduce how often migraines happen. And that's likely by like calming overactive signaling in the brain, just keeping things calm.
Yeah, definitely. There's a few other nutrients that come into it. So riboflavin, which you also know as vitamin B2, there's coenzyme Q10 and ginger. They all have evidence for reducing migraine frequency or severity, but they work over weeks rather than immediately.
Yeah, interesting. So these are more, I guess, their background support, aren't they, is what we're saying, rather than quick fixes.
Yeah, they are. But I think the key is to notice like your own pattern, because triggers, they like we've talked about, are highly individual.
That's right. And that's why headache diaries are so useful, because they turn kind of vague impressions into something measurable. Now, let's be honest, no one ever actually does this. Do you know anyone who keeps a headache diary?
Yeah, no.
No,
exactly. But
it
all
sounds
we're
like a
saying
good
is
idea if you
it's a
struggle.
good idea. And, to write things down, then look back and identify trends can be incredibly useful. I'm doing my Captain Sensible bit.
But you've got to. You let people down if you don't.
Thanks, Captain Sensible.
Complete hypocrite.
And I guess that listening to all this, what stands out is how much of this overlaps with pretty much everything else we've covered on the I think we should change the name of the podcast to Why You Should Get Good Sleep, Hydrate Well, and Deal with Stress podcast.com. Because it's all connected, right?
Yeah, it's fascinating. We cover a wide variety of topics, yet we all come back down to good sleep, good hydration, good food movement.
Yeah.
Anyway, headaches, I guess, they're almost a bit like a pressure gauge, aren't they, for everything else going on inside your body?
Yeah, they are. And it's one of those cases where improving one area often improves the others too.
Yeah, so for me, I guess I like the idea that headaches aren't random, but they are signals.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a good way of looking at it. And once you think of headaches that way, the solutions to headaches make a lot more sense than they maybe did before.
Yeah, so headaches are not your brain misfiring. It's something in the system, that it's sort of being flagged. Something's needed.
Yeah.
It is. And I'm going to do my Captain Sensible thing again because...
We expect no less.
I know. But it's a bit almost the disclaimer time.
Yeah.
Because most headaches are benign, but there are a few red flags, of course. So if you get sudden thunderclap headaches, new severe headaches if you're over 50, or headaches with neurological symptoms like weakness or confusion or vision loss, these are major. This could be something else going on. So it's time to get that immediate attention.
Yeah, go see your GP.
Yeah.
And it's good to know, isn't it, where this line is, because it's that, is this serious question that's kind of always there in the background when it comes to your headaches.
Yeah, it is. But, for most cases, understanding what's happening turns it from something mysterious into something more manageable. Okay, so why do we get headaches?
So it's because the pain-sensitive parts around the brain, like blood vessels, the lining of the brain and surrounding muscles, get activated. And those signals are carried by a nerve system called the trigeminal pathway up to the brain. Then things like changing the brain chemicals, including serotonin and CGRP, hormonal shifts, they can turn up the sensitivity, amplifying it into a headache or a migraine.
And in migraine specifically, cortical spreading depression adds a measurable wave of brain activity that kicks off the whole process.
Yeah, so it's not the brain causing the pain. That's the key thing, isn't it? It's everything around it sending signals into the system.
It certainly is.
Yeah, and again, as I say, once you look at it that way, the solutions become much clearer and make more sense.
Yeah, so remember, next time you get a headache, next time a headache shows up, it's not random. It is just feedback from your body.
So that's why we get headaches. That's it for this week. Hit subscribe wherever you're listening or watching and drop us your next questions. Thanks for geeking out with us. That's it from me.
Are you sure?
Let me do that bit again. That's it from me. What? Scream. Can I do that bit again?
No, I think we should carry on.
Commit, Jenny, commit. So that's why we get headaches. That's it for this week. Hit subscribe wherever you're watching or listening and drop us your next questions in the comments. Thanks for geeking out with us. That's it from me.
That's it from me.
And that's it from me.
Bye for now.
Very good. That's it. Yeah, that's it from me.
Oh, see, that's it.